Welcome, Graham Hill. Thank you for being here and for taking the time to talk to me about your amazing life choices. So you're a writer, a designer, and a creator of LifeEdited, who has been spreading the message that less stuff equals more happiness. Could you tell me a little bit about how you've come to this?
Well, I guess over time and sort of by accident, but largely, I've sort of had some early success. Made some money. I built an internet company in '95 with my cousin that did really well, and so I made some money, and then society directs you pretty specifically to start spending that money and get a big house and a fast car and lots of stuff, and I did that, and I didn't really like it. I just realized that it just felt wrong in many ways, and just by chance I ended up. I sold the house that was in Seattle and moved to New York, and then I fell in love with this Spanish woman, and she went back to Europe, and so I went with her to Barcelona and ended up living with her in this tiny apartment, and that's actually where I started TreeHugger. And so as we did that, it was a virtual company, and so we realized that I actually lured her into working on it as well. And so we realized we could basically do work from anywhere. And so we did. We went and traveled around the world and lived in Buenos Aires and India, Barcelona, New York, and did a whole bunch of traveling in between. And we realized during that process that we basically needed two bags, one for your office stuff and one for your clothes. And we got a lot of work done. It was very inexpensive. We got incredible experiences, and so we just sort of clued in that we didn't need all this stuff. And we moved back to New York. We moved into a 350 square foot, 6-floor walk-up, and we're really happy there. And so I think that was sort of the start. And then with TreeHugger, obviously there's small is beautiful, lots of conversations about this general topic, and so my site TreeHugger was also talking about it a lot, and so I was living about it and living it and reading about it, and and it's just sort of gone from there, and I just it works.
So you've got like a minimalist approach to life. So does that make you a minimalist? Is that how you describe yourself?
I guess so. I don't know. I don't think about it too much. I just it's just a way that I try to live, and I'm not different from most. I still suffer, like somehow you end up accumulating stuff, and but I'm more conscious about it. I definitely, having done a couple of very small apartments that I lived in, I just see the tremendous advantage on a financial level, environmental level, and just general happiness level to having a less but better lifestyle where you just have less, you have stuff that you love and not too much of it. And then, I mean, the thing that it took me a long time to occur to me, but I think it's sort of amazing, is at one point I just sort of realized, like, generally, and this is it is different Europe to America, I would say. Sometimes it's probably easier to like order the thing online than to find the thing. Like, we have so much stuff that it's hard to find our stuff within our own stuff. I mean, that's how crazy it is. So that was a bit of a realization. It's just like, that is nuts. That is nuts.
But you also have in the States a $22 billion storage space industry, don't you? Mm-hmm. Which is obviously a pretty clear indicator that we have an issue with waste and an issue with consumerism.
Yes. It's crazy. Yeah, people, I mean, and listen, I don't think we should beat ourselves up. I think it's evolution, and until probably, like, I don't know, if I had to pick a date, I'd say in the 50s somewhere. 1950s, more was always better, right? Like, there wasn't much stuff, and so having more stuff was better. But we've reached a point where it's just not, that's not always the case, and often isn't the case.
Well, it's also that, like now consumerism is an inherent part of the way that our economy functions, and the way that our economy functions is an inherent part of the way societies can flourish according to the systems of which they're a part. So or systems are a part of the societies. So like, yeah, we have like this assumption that like a consumerist way of life is sort of inevitable, that it's kind of part of our human nature. And I think for me, trying to reduce the amount of consumerism that I engage in, as well as just becoming like more like, you know, conscious of what it is that I'm buying and where I'm buying it and how much I'm buying, you know, it's been like a big process of unlearning. I still obviously I get like the initial desire to buy things that I don't need, and sometimes I do just get them, and then and then I'm looking at it being like, I didn't need that, you know, and I'll send it back or something. You know, that's getting less, but yeah, it's definitely a process of unlearning, because our brains have kind of been wired as though this is like a natural thing for us, and actually human beings are the only thing in the world that create waste. Like when an apple falls from a tree, it's only halfway through its life. It then, you know, starts to nourish the soil, and there's no waste there.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, and we've just confused happiness with being about space and stuff, and you know, happiness it's not, you know, we all need some stuff and some, you know, general comfort, and that's a nice thing, but happiness is mostly about connections and relationships and experiences. And it's just proven again and again in science, and then just intuitively that more space and more stuff doesn't make you happy. You know, some of the richest people in the world are really, really unhappy.
Yeah, well, I guess that the kind of the accumulation of things and stuff get in the way of our ability to to be like with others, and to kind of be living in relationship with other people, because we have all this stuff we need to be working for, or paying off, or looking after, and guzzling all our time up.
Like you have to you have to manage your stuff. It's a whole thing, but we don't. It's easy to bring it into your life. It's a little bit harder to get it out of your life.
Yeah, well, this is actually something that I am concerned about, because I know that there's like a big, you know, especially at the moment, there's been a lot of different Netflix documentaries and series and stuff about adopting a more minimalist approach to life, or kind of clearing out the clutter and decluttering, blah, blah, blah. But my issue with it is that we live in a culture that thinks you can throw things away, but there is no away, obviously. And it just goes to a landfill. And so, this is something I really worry about. And are you mindful of that when kind of, you know, because I know you've done talks and stuff about how, like, you know, like where are the things going, and how do we declutter our lives in a conscious way, as well as consuming in a conscious way?
Well, and unfortunately, it's like I just said, it's hard. It's easier to bring it into your life. It's harder to get it out of your life, and you know, so ideally, if finances are important to you, you probably want to sell the things if they're worth something. But otherwise, you certainly want to get them to someone that can use them, and not just get them in the landfill. And then worst case, you want to, you know, try to separate them into their constituent parts and recycle what you can, and compost what you can, and throw out what you have to. But yeah, that's been sort of mind-blowing how challenging it is. I mean, there's just a lot of friction in that process. Like if you want to sell something, and you have to take a picture and figure out what model and describe it, and then you have to have a bunch of back and forth with someone on Craigslist who eventually probably disappears or doesn't turn up, or like it's a lot of work. It's way easier just to press buy on Amazon and have it come than actually get rid of it. And it's tough. I feel really bad. I hate throwing stuff out. I just the wasteful, like that. I've realized that's sort of for me the cool core. I think is partly is efficiency and waste. Just kills me that I know that whatever this thing is just going to be sitting in that landfill for thousands of years. It's just so incredibly wrong.
It's so wrong. I completely agree. I think like probably, the process of getting rid of your things that you no longer need as like laborious as possible, like so doing it as consciously as possible will give you so much motivation to never again buy another thing that you don't need. Because if you can like really tune back to like the experience on Craigslist or Gumtree or eBay or whatever it is that you're using to sell these things off. But do you like what kind of motivates you to continue with this kind of lifestyle of being aware of the things that you're bringing into your life and of reducing your consumerism?
I mean, I think for me it's like three things. It's finance, just not being wasteful. It's environment, and it's general happiness, and just giving. I think less stuff but better gives you more time and less stuff to think about and worry about. And so I think that's big. And I think we also just don't understand the impact, like the embodied energy in things that we own. Like electronics are brutal. And it's so easy to buy. Like they make them, somehow they're still so cheap. But the electronic batteries and circuit boards and all this stuff with rare metals coming from terrible situations, and they're not getting recycled. They're just ending up in some landfill. Yeah. So I think that's sort of the way I generally look at it.
No, e-waste is really scary, and I guess even trying to have a more minimalist approach to life, you might start reducing the amount of paper and things that you use, which is obviously like a wonderful thing to do, or reducing the amount of books. But then like next thing you know, you've got like a Kindle and an iPad and a laptop and all these other things. It's got to be very careful. And can you tell me about LifeEdited?
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's a little bit on the back burner right now. I'm trying to work on some other things, but yeah, LifeEdited was basically about bringing sort of the less but better lifestyle to the mainstream, and just trying to show people examples of how you can live a different life. And so it was architecture for sure, but then pretty heavy on the interior design, working with resource furniture and sort of transforming tables and Murphy beds and stuff like that. And so yeah, just really basically really smart layout, and then multifunctional transforming furniture. So like a table that comes out of the wall that might have like a bed that comes out of the wall. It might have a table that automatically folds underneath. The resource furniture makes some great ones like that. Or a coffee table that goes from like a foot high up to 3 feet high, and then stretches to be twice as long. So you have a coffee table that can become a work table or a dining table, that sort of stuff. And then just being really smart about what you put in the place. And so you don't need a huge knife block with all sorts of different knives. You probably need 3 beautiful knives done, and you need a nice set of nesting pots, and you don't need every size under the sun. You just need 4 of them or whatever. So you sort of every little thing that goes inside the apartment as well can be consciously purchased, and so that it lasts a long time.
So this is about kind of impact, like giving people like skills and ideas and tools in order to simplify their life and be able to live like more functionally in a smaller space. Is that right?
Yeah. I mean, just like from an environmental perspective, every cubic foot of space that we add to your home is a cubic foot that sort of conceptually has to be built, right? Has to be built out of the materials, has to be filled full of stuff, all the furniture and the possessions, and then it has to be heated, cooled, cleaned, moved, insured, managed. Like there's a lot that comes with it. And so if you can be smart about your space, like we're only in, each person is only in one room at a time. And so if you can have the rooms transform and you can do more with less, then going to save a bunch of money, and you're going to really lower your footprint as well.
Yeah, me and my boyfriend have just moved we just started renting a room in a house, and but it's like it's not very furnished, and then I was planning on taking stuff from London here, but it's been really hard to avoid the temptation to just like go online and buy things just for the room, you know, like stuff to put on the walls. So I'm like trying to adopt, trying to accept it. I like the space.
Yeah, if you can go slowly, that's definitely that's definitely the way to do it. Yeah.
Well, obviously, because we're in quarantine as well, so otherwise I'd want to go to like the markets and things, but yeah, I mean that's the issue, isn't it? You know, there's internet shopping, which is just like the tips of everyone's fingers when they're bored trying to do their work, or it's so easy just to slip into that. And so TreeHugger then and LifeEdited have something like similar in that you've had a mission to make environmentalism more mainstream.
Yes.
Yeah. So you've been doing, because when was TreeHugger started?
2004.
2004. So how's that been for you? The trying to open up the rhetoric to the mainstream.
I mean, I think it's been great. I feel proud of sort of, you know, coming up with the general concept and putting it together, and I was lucky enough to be able to get a terrific team on it, and with TreeHugger, and they did amazing work and continued. It's still going strong. So we've served literally billions of web pages, and so I mean, it's sort of hard to envision now unless you were into environmental media back then, but it was really a new take on things. It just there wasn't anything that was pro-business, that was pro-design, that was sexy and cool and inspirational and about hope and entrepreneurialism and so I think we really sparked some. We changed media, environmental media. And I think we also it was a for-profit. We made money, and I think we also pointed the way to many green businesses. Like we helped form green businesses because people thought, oh yeah, you could make money doing this also. And so, wow, all of a sudden there's a way I can do good while making some money. And so so I'm very proud of what TreeHugger was able to accomplish and continues to. And then LifeEdited, we sort of the idea was to become a real estate developer, which I realize is just not my thing. But we did this. We did sort of in a way the same thing, just more focused on small living, trying to really get people to understand and be attracted to small living. And I think we've done a solid job on that.
And do you have kind of a few tips or like your main message that you want to share with people, like about how they can try and move away from a cluttered lifestyle?
Sure. I mean, I think Marie Kondo just, I should have written a book in like 2010 when I was starting this, but like she's done such a terrific job. So I think she's probably a pretty good place to start. But I think you just go through I think the first step is to sort of go through your life section by section. So whether it's kitchenware or fashion or sportswear or tools or your office, and just go through, and there's sort of you just go at it and then find it's sort of three piles: yes, no, and maybe. And the maybes, I think, the yeses are stuff you keep, the no is stuff that you sell or recycle or throw out or compost. And then the maybes is, I think, just you put a bunch of stuff in a box and then maybe write the date on it and come back in 3 months or 6 months. And if you can't remember what's in the box and you didn't go in the box, then that can probably go into the no pile. I think that sometimes it's hard to let stuff go. The hardest stuff is probably the stuff that just is important memory-wise for you. And I think the trick that I've found is just make it digital. You can take a picture of something and still have that in memory, but whether you really need that physical thing that you only take out of the cupboard once every 4 years is probably questionable. And getting that to if it's a useful thing, to someone that can use it is a great thing. So, that would be another tip. And then I think you really like trying to slow down the buying process is really good. Just be slow about it, and because you might realize you don't really need it. And what you want to look for is multifunctional stuff. You want to look for stuff that's timelessly styled, so it's going to look good in 5 years, 10 years. You want to look for stuff that's repairable. And just be smart about what you buy. And something that is 50% more expensive but lasts 100% longer is a deal. And so, there is something about buying quality. And we as a society, we used to be very focused on that. Stuff used to really last. And there still is good stuff so just try to find things that are going to last a long time. And if you can afford it, save up for it and buy it and love it for a long time. I think that's a big thing. I mean, it's I've been working with Chris Jones from Berkeley, who does the cool climate calculators. And if you look at, it's like they're carbon calculators to sort of look at your lifestyle. And it's fascinating. You look at the goods and the services, and goods, so the stuff that you own, and it is actually really big, like more than your diet and more than your transportation, not flying, but more than like cars and your home. Like goods is a big chunk, and that's just stuff that we buy. And so being really conscious about that.
I really like that about, I think it's a really important tip there, and a really powerful one, is about like slowing down the buying process. Something that, I stopped buying kind of fast fashion, like just basically clothes I don't need a year ago or a year and a half ago now, and it's really kind of transformed things for me. But I actually haven't really bought any clothes since then anyway. I've had enough, I guess, but it's like, first of all, it's really like given me a sense of liberation, but also the other thing is that if I do see something I like, avoiding that like panic buying thing that's like we're so wired to do at the moment. I feel, as a generation, just like the real impulse to buy, and as though it's kind of like a natural part of me to just kind of purchase something so quickly, and instead to just leave it and then kind of just like delete, if it's online, just like delete the tab, and if like I can think about it like a few days later, then maybe reconsider. But just that like avoiding the impulse buying that's like constantly that's like more based on a mood, I think, rather than a necessity. And I think, when people talk about retail therapy, it really kind of shows where we're at as a culture. The fact that we think that like shopping and buying something external to ourselves is actually going to be able to fill some kind of void. I really love this idea of deeper materialism as well, and I think that's why, like, whilst I love what Marie Kondo's done, and I really enjoyed her series, again, going back a little bit to what we were saying before, I do have this like kind of worry of people just like going through their stuff and chucking loads of stuff out and not actually doing it, properly, and like throwing out trainers that they actually still need, but they just haven't run for a little bit, and then buying them like a couple months later, like
yeah, sure,
that kind of thing. But actually, like, if we were a materialist culture, we wouldn't have the waste problem that we did. Like, surely, like, to be materialist is to like love the material world and to not see it as disposable. My sister and I have this great teacher called Bayo Komalafe, and he talks about like plastic and like almost like trying to see these things, these like inanimate objects, but like as sacred themselves, and like almost as though like they have life to them as well. They've had like a whole journey and a whole process to be here, and I think we just trying to like reconnect with the story of where things come from and where things are going, and like what our role is in that kind of really like allows me to kind of like reignite a renewed curiosity in my life and in the way I can engage with things, rather than seeing things as being ashamed if I bought something, or just like not being like so cut off from the things that are in my life, and trying to be a lot more conscious about what it is that I'm bringing in.
Yes, Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly. Yeah.
So, what are you working on at the moment then?
I am trying to work on a set of environmental guides that help people do the truly understand sort of what the big moves that they might make in their lives, and then helps them to do them. Because it just is so clear to me that most people, very understandably, don't know where to start and what matters. And so I feel like the travesty in environmental communication in the last couple decades is just that basically people equate being green with recycling. And while we, in most places, probably do want to be doing a good job of recycling is actually a very small thing, and we want people to be thinking about switching their house over to renewable energy and driving electric if they drive, and optimizing their flying, and moving to more of a plant-rich diet, and reducing food waste, and advocating at work, and protesting, boycotting, organizing, voting. Like there are a lot of like more powerful things, and it's not actually, I sort of listed them, like it's really, 5 to 10, and really 5 of them are probably the big ones. And so helping people to understand what they are, in what order they should do them, start with the most impactful ones, and how to do them, because it really it's unfortunately very, very local. It matters a great deal where you are, because they're different. It's like where I live most of the time in Venice, California, in LA. Like Santa Monica has a composting program, Venice doesn't. The incentives for buying an electric car are different. The utility might be different, and whether I'm in a house or an apartment. So it's very, very complex, and I think people need a hand. And so I'm going to start with LA, but I sort of feel like that we need that for every city on earth, and we just haven't done a great job. We've been very general, and general is not enough for people with busy lives. You need to be able to be really time efficient if we're going to get people to make those changes.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, like, not appreciating the context in which people find themselves in when, like, communicating about living a more environmental life has, like, caused real issues, and I think also resentments towards the environmental movement and environmental people for not being able to acknowledge that difference in context, whether it's like socioeconomic or geographical. What would you say is like the kind of a really good place for people to start then, like from in the context of like the guides that you'll be making?
Well, I mean, this is the general problem. It is very specific. So, like what I say, but I mean, the list that I just gave is a good one. So big ones are like switch to renewable energy. Many places, certainly in the U.S., but many places allow that. You just look at contact your utility, go to your utility's website. You often can choose green power. And it might cost a little bit more, but it is something very much worth supporting, and it makes a big difference. If you drive, electric cars are now proving to be the lowest cost of ownership. They're also the future. They're the future. They're amazing. They're just better cars and less hassle. And so if you can move to electric, and that's of course after public transportation, biking, walking, do much of that. But if you have to drive, that's for probably many people that might listen to this. I think flying is huge, and so figuring out how to reduce and optimize your flying. So fly economy, fly during the day. That actually makes a difference, from what I understand, and less trips, but longer. Pack stuff together, because that's flights emit a ton of carbon into the air. So if you fly, then that's a big one to focus on. Plant-rich diet, and food waste. Reducing food waste is actually just from it looks like just as much as having like a plant-rich diet is reducing food waste. So planning your food well so that you throw out very little, and whatever you throw out is actually composted instead of emitting methane in the landfill is another one. Anyway, I could tell you a lot of things, but there are some.
We've just started a compost, which is really exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know.
It's going to be interesting to see what happens post-COVID-19, because I guess this situation is forcing a lot of businesses that would usually have like employees flying from country to country to actually just be doing meetings online. So I'm hoping that's going to be a positive potential outcome.
Yeah. Yes. I mean, I think it is, period. For sure.
Yeah. Okay, brilliant. Well, thank you, Graham, so much for talking to me today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. That was fun.